There comes a moment, quiet, yet thunderous, when those who have lived behind walls of avoidance suddenly realize that the person they hoped would always be there is gone. This moment is not merely an instant of loss, it is a profound awakening, often too late, to the cost of turning away from connection. Avoidance, while it may feel like safety, is in truth a slow erosion of the soul's most sacred ties. You see, avoidance is an illusion of protection. It convinces us that by retreating, by not confronting, by keeping distance, we are preserving ourselves. But what it truly does is build invisible barriers, walls that separate hearts and silence voices longing to be heard. The irony is cruel. The very act meant to shield us becomes the force that fractures what we hold most dear. True strength, true connection, demands presence. It demands that we shed the armor of indifference and step into vulnerability. It is in this courageous vulnerability that the deepest bonds are forged. When avoidance steps in, it robs us of this sacred opportunity. It leaves behind a hollow space where love once dwelled, replaced by silence and cold regret. And regret, oh, how regret gnaws at the heart like a relentless storm. It is the silent tormentor that haunts those who realize, only after loss, what they once had and what they threw away. Regret is not merely sadness, it is the sharp awareness of choices unmade, words unsaid, and moments ignored. It is the heavy weight of knowing that what was lost cannot simply be reclaimed with a wish or a late apology. The truth is that those who walk away because of avoidance are not easily replaced. Their absence is a void that no amount of explanation or justification can fill. The loss is profound because it was avoidable. Had there been presence instead of retreat, courage instead of fear, honesty instead of silence, the irreplaceable nature of this loss is the greatest lesson of all, yet within this painful truth lies a seed of transformation. To move beyond regret, one must first see avoidance clearly, not as a weakness to hide, but as a challenge to overcome. Accountability is the gateway to change. It calls us to look inward, to accept responsibility for the walls we have built, and to choose with unwavering resolve to dismantle them. It is in this act of conscious transformation that healing begins, before the moment of loss becomes final. So, to those who have been avoidance, hear this. The moment you lose someone precious is not just an end. It is a divine invitation, an invitation to awaken, to grow, and to reclaim the courage to connect fully. Do not wait for regret to consume you. Step forward now with honesty and heart. For in choosing presence over avoidance, you will find not only others restored, but yourself, renewed and whole. Avoidance is often mistaken for a shield, a way to protect oneself from pain, conflict, or discomfort. Many believe that by stepping back, by not engaging, they are preserving their peace and safeguarding their emotions. But this belief is a subtle deception. Avoidance, far from being a true protection, is more like a slow poison that seeps into relationships, breaking down trust and connection piece by piece. The illusion that avoidance keeps us safe is grounded in fear of vulnerability, fear of rejection, fear of being overwhelmed. Yet, this very fear that avoidance tries to manage ultimately causes a deeper wound, the loss of meaningful connection with those we care about most. When someone chooses avoidance, they create distance, sometimes physical, often emotional, that grows with every unspoken word and every unshared moment. This distance is not neutral or harmless. It changes the nature of relationships fundamentally. Imagine a bridge between two people. When avoidance takes hold, it's as if the planks of that bridge are quietly removed, one by one, until crossing from one side to the other becomes impossible. The gap widens, and the bridge collapses under the weight of silence and evasion. This gap is not just a space between two individuals, it is the space where intimacy, understanding, and trust once lived. The irony is profound. In the effort to avoid pain or conflict, avoidance actually invites greater pain, the pain of loss, loneliness, and regret. By turning away, avoidants rob themselves and others of the opportunity to resolve misunderstandings, to grow through challenge, and to deepen their bond. The avoidance that feels like a safe retreat is often a betrayal of the very relationship it claims to protect. It is a withdrawal that says, I am not ready to face this, but also, I am willing to lose this rather than risk being hurt. Moreover, avoidance creates an emotional disconnect that can make those around the avoidant feel unseen and unheard. When someone consistently avoids difficult conversations or emotional closeness, it communicates. whether intentionally or not, that their feelings are not valued or safe to express. Over time, this breeds resentment, confusion, and a sense of abandonment. The avoidant individual might think they are preserving themselves, but in truth, they are isolating themselves, building walls that keep others out and eventually trap themselves inside. This self-imposed isolation is especially damaging because humans are inherently social beings, wired for connection. Our emotional and mental well-being depends on authentic relationships. Relationships where we can be vulnerable, share our fears, hopes, and truths without judgment. Avoidance cuts off this essential nourishment. It leaves the avoidant person in a state of emotional drought where true intimacy cannot flourish. The longer avoidance persists, the more it erodes the foundation of trust and closeness that sustains any meaningful bond. It's important to recognize that avoidance is often rooted in past wounds or fear of pain, which makes it a natural, though misguided, defense mechanism. Yet wisdom teaches us that true protection does not come from retreating, but from facing life with courage and presence. When we lean into discomfort and allow ourselves to be seen fully, even in moments of conflict or vulnerability, we open the door to healing and deeper connection. Avoidance, on the other hand, blocks that door and leaves us standing outside, watching the warmth and light we once shared grow dimmer. In essence, avoidance is a strategy that promises safety but delivers loss. It convinces us that by stepping back, we preserve ourselves, but it actually diminishes our capacity to relate, to love, and to be loved. The distance it creates is not a buffer but a barrier that, once fully recognized, demands courage to dismantle. Understanding this illusion is the first step toward choosing presence over avoidance, connection over fear, and ultimately toward reclaiming the richness of relationships that sustain and transform our lives. True connection, the kind that nourishes the soul and transforms lives, is rooted deeply in presence and vulnerability. These are not mere words, but profound principles that define the quality and depth of human relationships. To be present means more than simply occupying the same physical space as another person. It means to engage fully, to listen with intention, to see beyond the surface, and to offer one's authentic self without reservation. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is the courageous act of opening one's heart, despite the risk of judgment, rejection, or pain. Together, presence and vulnerability create the sacred space where genuine intimacy is born. The paradox of vulnerability is that while it may feel like an exposure of weakness, it is in fact the greatest demonstration of strength. It takes immense courage to let down the defenses we have built over years, to admit our fears, to share our deepest thoughts and feelings. Yet this openness is what allows others to truly know us, and in turn, for us to truly know them. Avoidance strips away this possibility because it is founded on fear, the fear of discomfort, the fear of emotional exposure, the fear of being hurt. When we avoid, we deny ourselves the opportunity to experience the fullness of connection, leaving behind only isolation and misunderstanding. Presence demands attention and intention. In a world filled with distractions, technology, busyness, noise, it is easy to drift into superficial interactions where words are exchanged, but hearts remain distant. Present means resisting this drift. It means slowing down and tuning in, listening not just to respond but to understand. It means acknowledging the other person's humanity, their struggles, their joys, without judgment or defensiveness. This kind of presence is a gift, one that says, "I see you, I hear you, you matter to me." It fosters trust and safety, the essential ingredients for vulnerability to flourish. Without vulnerability, relationships become a series of performances where masks are worn and true feelings hidden. This creates a barrier that keeps people from truly connecting. The avoidant mindset thrives in this realm of distance because it fears the messiness of real emotions and the unpredictability of being known fully. But real love, real connection, is never tidy or predictable. It requires the messy honesty of vulnerability, admitting mistakes, expressing needs, and sometimes sitting with uncomfortable truths. This honesty is the soil from which deep empathy and understanding grow. Moreover, vulnerability is not a one-way street. It calls for mutual exchange, where both parties are willing to show their true selves. This reciprocity builds a foundation of mutual respect and shared humanity. It breaks down the walls of avoidance and invites healing. When both people are present and vulnerable, the relationship becomes a living, breathing entity that evolves and deepens over time. It becomes a sanctuary where both can find acceptance and belonging. The power of presence and vulnerability also extends beyond personal relationships. It is a way of being that enriches all aspects of life. In professional settings, it fosters collaboration and creativity. In communities, it builds trust and resilience. Spiritually, it connects us to something greater than ourselves, a divine principle that honors truth, compassion, and unity. Avoidance, by contrast, disconnects us, not only from others, but from our own authentic selves and from the deeper currents of life. Choosing presence and vulnerability requires courage, discipline, and a willingness to face discomfort. It is a daily practice of choosing connection over fear, authenticity over pretense. It is understanding that the moment of true connection, those moments when we dare to be seen and to see, are the moments that give life meaning and depth. Avoidance may seem like an easier path in the short term, but it leads to a hollow existence, devoid of the rich human experience that only presence and vulnerability can bring. In embracing presence and vulnerability, we step into a higher way of living, one that honors the sacredness of relationships and the divine potential within each encounter. It is a transformative journey that reshapes not only our connections with others, but also our understanding of ourselves and the world. To avoid this path is to settle for less than the fullness of life, and to regret the depth of connection we could have embraced, if only we had the courage to be present and vulnerable. Regret is a powerful and often devastating emotion that quietly consumes the heart and mind of those who have chosen avoidance over engagement. For avoidance, regret is not just a passing feeling, it is a persistent, gnawing presence that reminds them daily of what they lost and why. It becomes a silent tormentor, a shadow that follows them wherever they go, casting doubt and sorrow over every thought. This regret is born from the painful realization that the very people they pushed away, those who truly mattered, are now gone, and with them, the opportunity to heal, grow, and experience genuine connection. Unlike other emotions that may come and go, regret is deeply rooted in choice and consequence. It carries the weight of what-ifs and if-onlys, replaying moments when a different decision might have preserved the relationship. For the avoidant, regret highlights the moments they withdrew instead of leaning in, remained silent instead of speaking truth, and closed off instead of opening their hearts. It is a heavy burden because it is not just about loss but about responsibility, the knowledge that the distance they created was not accidental but self-imposed. This awareness can be crushing because it reveals that the loss was avoidable, that the fracture in the relationship was a result of their own defense mechanisms rather than external circumstances. Regret is particularly painful because it often arrives too late, after the door has closed, after the other person has walked away, and after the chance to make things right has slipped beyond reach. It is the cruel teacher that shows us the cost of avoidance with stark clarity. The avoidant's initial retreat may have seemed like a temporary escape, a way to protect themselves from immediate discomfort, but the long-term consequence is a deep void filled with loneliness and remorse. The silence that avoidance once provided as refuge becomes deafening, echoing with the absence of connection. This emotional torment is more than just sorrow, it is a catalyst that can either destroy or transform. For many avoidants, regret is a slow-burning fire that consumes their peace of mind, making it difficult to move forward or find closure. It can lead to patterns of self-blame, anxiety, and even depression as they struggle to reconcile their desire for connection with the fear that drove them away. The weight of regret can become so overwhelming that it clouds their ability to see a path toward healing, trapping them in a cycle of guilt and longing. Yet, regret also holds the potential for profound insight. It forces a confrontation with the self, an honest reckoning with one's fears, failures, and the real cost of avoidance. When this realization is embraced rather than denied, regret becomes a teacher rather than a tormentor. It opens the door to self-awareness and accountability, shining a light on the patterns that must change if future relationships are to be different. The pain of regret can ignite a desire for growth, a commitment to break free from avoidance and to choose presence, honesty, and vulnerability instead. However, this transformation requires humility and courage. It demands that avoidants accept their part in the loss without excuses or blame. It requires them to face the discomfort of past mistakes and to take responsibility for healing, not only for others, but for themselves. This journey is neither quick nor easy, but it is the only path out of the shadow of regret. Without this reckoning, regret remains a destructive force, eroding self-worth and perpetuating isolation. Ultimately, the torment of regret reveals a profound truth. Relationships are fragile and precious, and avoidance can shatter them irreparably. The moment avoidants realize they have lost someone important is often the moment they fully understand the gravity of their choices. It is a moment filled with sorrow, but also with the possibility of redemption, if they are willing to learn from regret and let it guide them toward change. In this way, regret, while painful, is also a doorway to healing and transformation, calling avoidants to rise beyond their fears and embrace the connections they once fled. The value of those who choose to walk away because of avoidance is profound and irreplaceable. When someone decides that enough is enough, that they can no longer bear the distance, the silence, or the emotional unavailability, the loss that follows is not simply about the absence of a person, it is the loss of what that person represented: trust, love, companionship, and the potential for shared growth. This departure marks a boundary crossed, a line drawn in the sand, signaling that the space once filled by connection has now become a void that cannot be filled by mere words or apologies. Relationships are delicate ecosystems that require care, attention, and mutual presence to thrive. When avoidance seeps into the fabric of these bonds, it slowly unravels the threads that hold them together. The person who walks away is often the one who has patiently endured the erosion of intimacy, the withholding of true emotion, and the repeated absence of genuine engagement. Their decision to leave is a final act of self-preservation, an assertion that they will no longer be trapped in a dynamic where their needs are ignored or minimized. This decision, while painful, is also a powerful declaration of self-worth. The irreplaceability of someone who walks away stems from the unique history, shared experiences, and emotional investment that no one else can replicate. Every relationship carries its own narrative, built over time through moments of joy, struggle, laughter, and tears. When avoidance causes someone to leave, it is as if an entire chapter of one's life closes abruptly. No matter how much one might wish to mend the fracture, the reality is that the specific connection that was lost cannot be simply restored or replaced. The absence leaves a gap that is felt deeply, not just by the one who lost the other, but by both parties. Often avoidants hold on to the hope that things can return to how they were, or that time will heal the wounds left behind. But time alone cannot undo the damage caused by sustained avoidance. The loss of trust, the feeling of emotional neglect, and the sense of being unseen or unheard create scars that require more than patience. They require active, consistent effort to rebuild. For those who walk away, these efforts may never come, or they may come too late. The opportunity to restore what was broken is delicate and fleeting. Once lost, it is not easily reclaimed. Excuses and delayed change cannot replace presence and accountability. Avoidance, when left unaddressed, sends a message that connection is optional and that emotional safety is secondary. The person who chooses to leave has often reached a place where they no longer believe in the possibility of meaningful change or restoration. Their departure is a response to repeated disappointments and unmet needs. It is a statement that their own well-being and growth cannot be sacrificed for the comfort of avoidance. This kind of loss is transformative, not only because it marks the end of a relationship, but because it forces a reckoning with one's own patterns and choices. It serves as a stark reminder that connection requires courage and commitment. It calls those who remain to face the reality that avoidance is not sustainable if they hope to keep the relationships that matter. It is a wake-up call to step into vulnerability, to listen deeply, and to engage honestly before the moment of loss becomes irreversible. The irreplaceable nature of those who walk away also speaks to the sacredness of human connection. Each relationship carries its own divine imprint, a unique blend of energies and experiences that cannot be duplicated. Losing someone because of avoidance is not merely a social or emotional setback, it is a spiritual loss that diminishes the richness of life itself. It is a reminder that love and connection are gifts to be cherished, nurtured, and protected with intentional presence. In understanding the true value of those who walk away, there is also an opportunity for transformation. It urges a shift from avoidance to awareness, from fear to courage, and from isolation to openness. It challenges us to honor the relationships we still have by being fully present and accountable, so we do not find ourselves facing the emptiness left by someone who has already chosen to leave. The loss may be painful, but within that pain lies the potential for deep learning and the possibility of embracing connection in a way that is authentic and lasting. Transformation begins with awareness, a moment of clarity when avoidance is no longer a hidden habit, but a visible pattern that demands attention. This awakening is essential, because without recognizing avoidance for what it truly is, change remains impossible. Awareness is the first step toward reclaiming the relationships we have allowed to slip through our fingers and, more importantly, toward healing the parts of ourselves that avoidance was meant to protect but ultimately harmed. It calls us to look inward with honesty and courage, to confront the fears and insecurities that have driven us to withdraw rather than engage. Accountability follows naturally from awareness. It is the commitment to take responsibility for one's actions, choices, and their impact on others. This is no small task, for it requires humility and a willingness to face uncomfortable truths without defensiveness or blame. Accountability means acknowledging the pain caused by avoidance, not only to others, but to oneself. It demands that we stop making excuses or justifying our distance, and instead own the consequences of our behavior. This ownership is liberating because it places the power of change squarely in our hands. It reminds us that while we cannot undo the past, we can choose how we move forward. Meaningful change is born in this fertile ground of awareness and accountability. It is not about quick fixes or superficial gestures, but about deep, sustained commitment to growth. It involves developing new ways of relating, practicing presence, even when it feels uncomfortable, embracing vulnerability even when it feels risky, and communicating openly even when fear tempts us to remain silent. Change requires patience with oneself and others, recognizing that undoing the patterns of avoidance takes time and effort. It is a journey marked by small victories and setbacks, but each step forward strengthens the capacity for genuine connection. Transformation also requires intention. It is a deliberate choice to prioritize relationships and emotional honesty over the temporary comfort of avoidance. This means actively seeking out connection, asking difficult questions, and being willing to sit with discomfort rather than flee from it. Intention shapes behavior. It moves us from reactive habits to conscious actions. When avoidants cultivate this intention, they begin to rewrite their relational story, from one of withdrawal and loss to one of engagement and healing. In this process, self-compassion plays a crucial role. Transformation is not about self-condemnation, but about understanding that avoidance often arises from deep-seated wounds and fears. Recognizing this allows for gentleness toward oneself, which in turn fosters resilience. Self-compassion softens the harsh inner critic that can accompany accountability, making it easier to persevere through the challenges of change. It encourages an attitude of learning rather than failure, helping avoidants to see each moment of vulnerability as a step toward wholeness. Importantly, transformation through awareness and accountability is not only about repairing past damage, but also about creating a new foundation for future relationships. It builds emotional intelligence and deepens empathy, enabling avoidants to connect more authentically with themselves and others. This shift transforms avoidance from a reactive defense into a conscious choice for presence, trust, and love. It opens the door to richer, more fulfilling relationships and a greater sense of inner peace. Ultimately, the journey from regret to growth is a sacred one. It calls for courage to face the shadow of avoidance, honesty to admit its consequences, and commitment to change. This transformation is a profound act of self-love and respect for others, a declaration that connection matters more than fear, and presence matters more than distance. By embracing awareness and accountability, avoidance can break free from the cycle of loss and regret and step into a life marked by meaningful relationships and authentic connection. It is not an easy path, but it is the path to freedom, healing, and true belonging. Thank you for your time and openness. May your journey toward connection be filled with courage and growth. Goodbye for now, and remember that every step forward is a step toward a fuller, richer life. In the end, avoidance is not merely a habit, it is a barrier that stands between us and the fullness of life's deepest connections. When we choose distance over presence, silence over honesty, we risk losing those who matter most. But loss also brings awakening. the painful clarity that shows us what we truly value and what must change. Regret, while heavy, can be a powerful catalyst for transformation if we embrace it with awareness and accountability. It calls us to dismantle our walls, to step into vulnerability, and to reclaim the courage to connect authentically. Remember, the moments we have now are precious and fragile. Choosing presence today can prevent the heartbreak of losing someone tomorrow. Thank you for listening and allowing these truths to resonate within you. May you find the strength to face avoidance, the wisdom to embrace vulnerability, and the grace to nurture meaningful connections. Goodbye for now. Walk forward with courage and an open heart.